Imagine you're in your 30s, standing in a music store, holding a guitar. A lifelong dream. But a number pops into your head, 10,000 hours. Someone once said that's exactly how much it takes to learn something. You quickly calculate. If you practice for an hour a day, that's 27 years? The guitar goes back on the shelf. Just like that, a single number stole your dream. It stole the dreams of millions, plural. But what if I told you that this number is the result of the greatest intellectual misunderstanding of our time? That in reality, you don't need 10,000 hours, but just 20. And that the difference between these numbers is the difference between "I'll try it someday" and "I'll start tonight." Today, we'll break down how one scientific study turned into a cultural myth that paralyzes people, and how to destroy it. We live in an age of paradox. On one hand, access to knowledge has never been easier. YouTube, online courses, thousands of books in your pocket. On the other hand, we learned less than ever. Why? Because the 10,000-hour rule turned learning from an adventure into a sentence. Think about it. In the 19th century, an average person mastered 5 or 6 crafts in their lifetime. A peasant could be a carpenter, a blacksmith, and a musician at village festivals. Not a virtuoso, just good enough. But today, we're afraid to even pick up a brush because what if I don't turn out like Picasso? We've substituted concepts, confused mastery with competence, Olympus with base camp, and that's the whole problem. Let's start with where these 10,000 hours even came from. 1993. Anders Ericsson, a Swedish psychologist, studies students at the Berlin Academy of Music, specifically violinists, specifically in an elite conservatory. His question is extremely narrow. What distinguishes those who become world-class soloists from those who remain just good musicians? The answer? By age 20, future stars had accumulated roughly 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Notice, not just practice, deliberate, focused, painful, honestly. It's when you repeat a difficult passage that isn't working over and over again, instead of playing what you already know. And second, 10,000 hours separated the good from the brilliant, not zero from good. But in 2008, Malcolm Gladwell, a journalist and master of catchy phrases, releases the book Outliers. And there he writes, "Research shows to achieve mastery in any field, you need 10,000 hours of practice." See the substitution? World class turned into mastery. Violinists of an elite academy became any field. A narrow scientific observation turned into a universal law of nature. Gladwell is a talented storyteller. He gives examples. The Beatles played 8 hours a day in Hamburg clubs, 10,000 hours. Bill Gates programmed since he was 13, 10,000 hours. Beautiful, convincing, and absolutely misleading. Because these people didn't become good after 10,000 hours. They were already good much earlier. The Beatles got a recording contract long before they played their 10,000 hours. Gates sold his first program in high school. 10,000 hours is not the threshold of entry into competence. It's a marathon to absolute perfection. But the myth was launched, and it spread with the speed of a virus because people like simple formulas, especially those that sound like science. Now let's jump to 2011. Josh Kaufman, a business consultant, author, and average guy, becomes a father and suddenly realizes he no longer has any time. Before, he could spend weekends learning something new. Now, even 40 minutes of uninterrupted time is a luxury. But Kaufman wanted to learn. Programming, yoga, playing the ukulele, the list was long. And here he faced the 10,000-hour myth head-on. If every skill requires 10,000 hours, he thought, then at 1 hour a day, that's 27 years for one skill. In my whole life, I'll master at most 2 or 3 things, the rest to the scrap heap. Absurd, right? So Kaufman started digging. He studied Ericsson's study, the original, not Gladwell's retelling. He He studied works on neuroplasticity, motor learning, and cognitive psychology, and discovered something interesting. The learning curve is not linear. It looks like a hockey stick turned upside down. In the first hours, you grow rapidly. Then, growth slows significantly. From "I have no idea what I'm doing" to "I can do this reasonably well" is a huge leap. But from reasonably well to virtuoso is a years-long marathon. Kaufman asked himself, what if we don't need to be virtuosos? What if being good enough to enjoy it is enough? And he came up with his formula. 20 hours of deliberate, reasonably structured practice is enough to overcome the frustration barrier and reach a level of noticeable competence. 20 hours is not mastery. It's the moment when a skill stops being a stress of stress and becomes a source of joy. Kaufman didn't just name a number. He developed a method. 4 simple steps. First, skill decomposition. Break it down into the smallest subtasks. Want to learn to program? Don't start by building Facebook. Start by getting "Hello World" on the screen. Guitar? Not Stairway to Heaven, but 3 basic chords. Leo Tolstoy, when he was learning to write, didn't immediately start War and Peace. He rewrote other people's stories, changing 1 word at a time to understand how the rhythm of a sentence works. Second, learn just enough theory to start practicing and correcting yourself. Don't read 10 books on swimming. Read 1 chapter and jump in the water. We delay action under the pretext of preparation. It's a trap. Perfectionism disguised as responsibility. Third, remove barriers to practice. Want to draw? Put the notepad and pencil on the desk, not in the back drawer. Want to meditate? Put the cushion in the center of the room. Winston Churchill, when he was learning to paint at age 50, always kept his easel ready in his study. Even 15 minutes between meetings, he painted. Fourth, practice for at least 20 hours. Don't quit at the 5th hour. The hardest part is the first few hours when you feel like an idiot. The brain screams, "This isn't for me." But if you persist, around the 10th or 15th hour, something will click and you'll feel it. The moment when your hands start moving on their own and you don't think about technique, you just do it. Let's be honest, the 20-hour method won't make you Mozart. It won't make you Steve Jobs or Martin Luther King Jr. But you know what the real tragedy of the 10,000 hours is? It made us think that if we can't be the best, there's no point in starting at all. It's the ultimate absurdity. Lincoln wasn't the best orator of his time when he delivered the Gettysburg Address, but he was good enough to change history. George Orwell wasn't considered the greatest stylist when he wrote 1984, but the book entered the canon. 20 hours is an invitation to live more fully, to learn to cook pasta carbonara so that friends ask for the recipe, to play a song on the ukulele at a family gathering, to write a Python script that automates boring work. It's not about being the best, it's about expanding the palette of your life. And now, practice. Choose 1 skill, the one you've been putting off for years. Set aside 20 minutes a day. That's an hour and a half a week, 20 hours in 3 months. Break the skill down. Find 1 resource, a video, a book, an article. Not 10, just 1. Remove the obstacles and start. Not tomorrow, today. There's an old Zen proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. 10,000 hours is a tree you plant but will never see the fruit of. 20 hours is a sapling that will bloom this very spring. We live in a culture of experts and specialization. We're told, be the best at one thing or be no one. But humans weren't built for such narrowness. The Renaissance was the age of polymaths. Leonardo da Vinci was an artist, engineer, anatomist, and musician. Not the best in every field, but good enough to see the connections between them. Maybe real wisdom isn't about reaching the summit of one mountain, but about climbing high enough on many to see the panorama? Write in the comments, what skill did you want to master but put off because of the 10,000 hour myth? Let's destroy this myth together. 20 hours, 3 months, a new version of yourself. The clock is ticking.